He has a spiritual advisor. Did you know that? Trump has a spiritual advisor. She was the first female ever to participate in the religious bullshit that they had, the invocations or whatever, when they were all sitting out there after Trump. Was that before or after Trump was sworn in? I think it was after. But her name is Paula White. She is from Orlando, and she's one of those people that preaches, what do you call it? Prosperity gospel. Prosperity gospel. That says if you, oh, Jesus Christ. If you give generously, not to the poor, not to the sick, not to the homeless, not to the addicted, not to the kids, but if you give poorly, if you give generously to these prosperity gospel preachers, in this case like Paula White, you will be wonderfully rewarded because you'll have lots of earthly riches. Didn't it? It says all over in the Bible that if you're rich, forget about it. You're never going to get your ass in heaven anyway. Didn't Jesus tell his, I don't know why I'm doing this again, but, he told them to sell everything they had, leave their family, take up the cross, and follow him. They just don't seem to get it, do they? But anyway, Paula White, Trump's spiritual advisor, she and Trump, according to what I have here, have been friends for about 15 years. Since Trump saw her on Christian television, called to tell her that she was fantastic and he'd like to grab her. Okay, he didn't say that. And during the campaign, Trump, if you remember, he had no fluency in the gibbledy-gobbledy garbage that the evangelical right speaks. That crazy, almost right on the verge of going into tongues, that crazy language they speak. The backwards, upside-down language, it doesn't mean anything except what they want it to mean, kind of like newspeak. And since he didn't speak that language, and Trump doesn't, she acted as his interpreter. Paula White said that Trump, quote, doesn't speak what I call Christianese, end quote. But she rejected portrayals of our new She rejected portrayals of Donald Trump as unversed on spiritual matters and unchurched, as the religious nutbags like to say. During an interview Wednesday afternoon at her hotel in Washington, she said, quote, more than people would ever recognize, he's self-reflective. He's a deep thinker. He's a studier. He's a phenomenal listener. Oh, my God. Trump must have grabbed something that this woman's involved with. She added, quote, oh, my God, I can't say this. She said, I know, now this was yesterday, that President-elect Trump has a personal relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ. She says, we've had in-depth conversations about God. Oh, my. By the way, the Reverend Ms. Paula White, bless her pea-pig and little heart, she had a former ministry called Without Walls International Church, and that was one of the 6 investigated in the past decade by the Senate Finance Committee because of financial improprieties. Of course! What would you expect? Of course. Now, at the time of this, who was it? It was Chuck Grassley, Charles Grassley that ordered, wasn't it? The investigation of these phony-ass churches, these prosperity gospel rat holes, that if there were such a creature as Jesus Christ and he were to return to the earth, he would walk into these places and set the goddamn places on fire. You know he would, right? Right. But when she was investigated, she was one of the 6 to be investigated, and at the time, she and her husband, Randy, and she's divorced now, refused to cooperate with the inquiry. And they kept their lavish spending hidden behind tax laws, that allow religious organizations to operate tax-free with little transparency. How about that? Of course this would be Trump's connection to Jesus. Did you get the feeling today, if you watched any of this horror, that you were at a revival, a Christian revival? I kept thinking, man, this is like being up in the mountains of North Carolina. And then Franklin Graham walked out, and I thought I was going to just mess all over myself. Franklin Graham? Oh, my God. I'd like to see him smile one time. He can sneer with the best of them. That sumbitch ever smiles, his whole goddamn top of his head is going to cave in. It'll just collapse, and his brain will shoot out his mouth. What an ugly, hideous man he is. And everything he says is ugly and hideous.